It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL NewsRadio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the BYU Cougars. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. It's a Tuesday edition of the program, and it is a loaded week. The countdown to BYU versus Texas Tech out in Lubbock continues, and that's our top story of the day, as BYU might have one of its top players for that top 10 matchup.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
All eyes are on LJ Martin. Will he play this week? Well, a report from ESPN's Pete Thamel. LJ is expected to play this week. Pete Thamel said BYU tailback LJ Martin is expected to play this week at number 9 Texas Tech. He practiced well on Monday and is in line to play Saturday. Full write-up on that on KSLSports.com. Kalani Sitake on Monday at his weekly media availability was asked about LJ Martin specifically and Jack Kelly, linebacker, who's dealing with a shoulder. And this was Kalani on those two banged-up starts.
Great. I mean, we'll see how they progress during practice this week. So they're not out. They're practicing, and we'll see by the time Wednesday. Hopefully it works in our favor. But the fact that they're not out is a good sign.
It's trending that way for LJ Martin to play, and that's huge for BYU. You're going up against a number one rush defense in college football in Texas Tech. They got an elite defense. The toughest test, hands down to date. I think if you're thinking, oh, they're like a Utah, no. This is completely different. This is a star-studded deal where you're talking about 2, maybe 3 first-round NFL draft picks. Texas Tech is loaded. If you look beyond that double T that historically hasn't been much in the college football landscape, perennially 7 and 8 win teams, no, this is a new era in Lubbock. It's an elite defense. And if you have any chance to run the football against them, you've got to have LJ Martin. So that's huge. And Pete Thamel, one of the best in the business, he reported that LJ is expected to play on Saturday. I think the big question going forward for LJ is, what's the season look like? Does there have to be any sort of surgery going forward in the future? Like, that's the big question to ask moving forward with this injury. Again, appeared to be an upper body injury against Iowa State at the end of the first quarter in Ames. He exited the game, didn't return. BYU took care of business still. Bear Bachmeier adjusted on the fly and turned to the air and passed for 307 yards in that game. But we all know, and I've been saying it the entire year, the season will go as far as LJ Martin is going to take this team. He is the key to all of it. He's the leading rusher in the Big 12. He's 16th nationally in rushing yards this season, and that's basically coming off 2 consecutive weeks where he didn't do much against Iowa State and a bye week, and he's still in the top 20 of rushing yards in college football. LJ, he is a runner that loves contact, and he's lowered that shoulder a lot this year and has been able to break tackles, and he's a physical runner. If he does go, how much does that change his style of running? I think that's a big question, too, in all of this. But long term, because LJ is still only a junior, he could run it back next year. Will there need to be any sort of surgery, things like that? Something to monitor going forward for LJ Martin, but he's expected to play. And you were going to have no ground attack without LJ Martin. Just Bear alone against this defense would not work. It just wouldn't. And so having LJ gives you the hope, and I think it keeps Texas Tech on its heels too, as to how they look at this BYU team and how they attack this team. You know, they're going to focus on themselves, sure, all the cliche stuff, but BYU is a tough team to manage. Bear Bachmeier creates some mismatches. And I think for BYU, if they can have some early success in this game, They cannot get off to a slow start in this game. You get off to a slow start, it's going to be game over for BYU. This doesn't scream to me a game where it's conducive to say, oh, we'll dig ourselves back out of a hole and find a way to win it. No. I do think Texas Tech, I'm curious to see how they perform in a big national spot that they're not used to. First time since 2008 that they're hosting College Game Day. Really first time where they've got a big national spectacle on their program in nearly 2 decades. Are they ready for that opportunity, that stage? That's something to me that'll be very interesting with Texas Tech. But having LJ Martin there for BYU is huge. Because outside of LJ, the running back unit it's pretty incomplete now. We've gone through it many times. Pokai Hunga, gone in fall camp. Hinckley Rapati didn't get the extra year. Sione Moa banged up, still expected to be determined on his status. I mean, it's getting to the point where there's only 3 games after this week. Do you bring him back if you can get him to the playoffs or a Big 12 title? Maybe, but still, that's pretty intense stuff there. So it's a thin running back unit, and Preston Rex got a little bit dinged up at the end of the Iowa State game. You've got Logan Payne, you got Enoch Nawahine, but it's light. LJ Martin is the key to running the football. You can't just solely bank on Bear Bachmeier with quarterback dives up the middle, up the heart of a defense like Texas Tech. Lee Hunter in the middle of that defensive line. Tech's really good. This Texas Tech team, to me, is the best team in the Big 12 since BYU joined the conference in 2023. And that includes Texas and Oklahoma back in 2023. Remember, Texas with Steve Sarkisian, Quinn Ewers, they reached the college football playoff that year. I think this Texas Tech team is better than that Texas squad from 2 years ago. Texas Tech's for real. If BYU pulled off this win, it would be one of the greatest wins in BYU football history. Not to say that, oh my gosh, they did the unthinkable, like they're David versus Goliath here. But I think when you factor in all of the intangibles that goes into this game and what's on the line and the eyeballs, the attention of this game, it's a huge game. It's massive. It's a huge opportunity that you want to capitalize and put your best foot forward. I think that's the biggest thing here. And I think that's what gets people excited about the prospect of LJ Martin potentially playing, is that you just have a chance to, with your full collection of personnel, to see what you've got. This is a beaten-up team. BYU's banged up. You know, you look at the depth chart this week, and there's some new wrinkles. JoJo Phillips does return to the depth chart at wide receiver. That's promising. Anisi Purcell at defensive tackle. He's not listed. Jack Kelly's still listed. In a big stage like this, you got to have your top dogs, and no one is a bigger dog than LJ Martin for this BYU football team. He's the star. The best player on this team when fully healthy is Isaiah Glasker, in my opinion. But the most important player, the MVP, is LJ Martin to this BYU football team. And he's going to be critical for BYU to have a chance to potentially pull off the upset this week against Texas Tech, which kicks off at 10 a.m. on KSL News Radio and ABC, Network ABC. So it's a huge opportunity. Extended pregame begins at 7 a.m. from Lubbock for the Cougs and Red Raiders. I will be down there in Lubbock to have you covered for all of that with Kyle Ireland on KSL News Radio. Let's take a break. Get to more BYU football talk around the corner. It's Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Every day, daily content for you on your podcast feed, video, audio, however you watch and listen to the show. Appreciate you for being on board, and subscribe to whatever your favorite feed is and platform. Leave a 5-star rating, thumbs up on YouTube. You know the drill by now, so make sure to do that, and I appreciate you if you do means a lot to me and to this program. So I would appreciate that. Last night I was in Las Vegas for BYU and Villanova, an electric crowd, 71-66. The Cougs get it done over the Wildcats of Villanova. First win over Villanova since 1970 in the Rainbow Classic. That was more than half a century ago. Man, times have changed for BYU basketball, has it not? Goodness gracious. It is a new world to see all the different media platforms that are covering just solely A.J. DiBonsa. This is A.J.'s world, and we're just living in it, folks. And Villanova head coach Kevin Willard, he even admitted, A.J., special talent. This was Villanova head coach Kevin Willard.
I had one of those last year. They're fun. You know, when you got a talented freshman like that, that's, you know, first, second pick in the draft, which he is. I said it to the media before. He's one of the best high school players I've seen come out in a long time. He's great size, great length. And he's much tougher for a kid his age. So he's the real deal.
High praise from Kevin Willard, who doesn't seem like a guy that would just give that sort of praise out just on a whim. The guy that he was referring to that he coached last year, Derek Queen, who's now with the New Orleans Pelicans in the NBA. He was a star for Maryland. He was part of that Montverde team that Rob Wright was also on with Cooper Flagg, Derek Queen, heralded freshman. It is a game changer to have that type of impact player. And college basketball this year has some incredible freshman players. The class of freshmen this year is loaded, and most of them reside in the Big 12. Koa Pete was excellent last night. Nate Ament with Tennessee. A lot of great players at the freshman class, and then Darren Peterson with Kansas. I think what was impressive, though, about A.J. DiBonsa in his performance, 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 32 minutes of action, 0 turnovers. That shined to me in his performance, but this was by no stretch his peak, his best showing that he will ever have. He's got to clean up the free throws, sure, but DiBonsa was just ready physically for the moment, too. All eyes were on him. You could sense it on the crowd. I was in pregame warm-ups on the court baseline, watching it all unfold, and everyone has their phones out, taking pictures to see A.J. DiBonsa. Never seen that. I didn't get the chance to cover Jimmer Fredette, so I can't speak to what that was like as a media member, but keep in mind the media game has changed in the last 14 to 15 years quite a bit. It's a night and day difference, and videos and quick videos and pictures. I mean, that's all the rage, and AJ is at the center of it all. And when you talk hoop heads, they know AJ. Young people know AJ DiBonsa. My kids, even if they were not BYU fans, they would know about AJ DiBonsa because they love sports. They love these young, social media, trendy hoopers and athletes that have aura and massive followings, and A.J. DiBonsa has that and then some. But I thought it was, in many respects, a performance that he will just get with ease by just showing up on the floor. Wait till he has a career night. What does that look like for BYU? That's so exciting to me going forward for this BYU team. And also, too, when BYU starts to knock down their three-point shots at a high clip, particularly Richie Saunders, and I'm not placing it solely on him, but Richie, the best shooter on the team, when he's knocking them down at a high clip, man, that's going to change everything for this team. Richie ended up with 15 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals as well. Richie, even on a off night by Richie Saunders standards, still filling up the stat sheet in 29 minutes of action for BYU. The defense, I thought, showed up for BYU after giving up the lead to Villanova. BYU was up 14 in the second half. Villanova gets up by 1. BYU got tough down the stretch, and defensively, they stepped it up. This was Kevin Young.
I mean, we were employing these guys to just lock in and get stops. I thought Moo Davis really stepped up defensively. I thought all these guys did. Obviously, Lindsey really got going, so we didn't do a good enough job on him. But I thought we just found a way to find enough stops there, and I think that says a lot about our group.
It's a positive step in the right direction for a BYU team that you would have thought they're going to win on the defensive end. They tightened up down the stretch, and they showed a toughness that Kevin Young believes can translate night after night. He's pretty confident in that toughness showing up on a regular basis this season.
I'm very confident in that. These guys, we got some dogs in our locker room. I thought Kayla was incredible in this game. I thought Kennard Davis was equally as physical defensively. I've said this to AJ ad nauseum. I think he has the tools to be one of the best, if not the best defenders in the country. I'm on Rob all the time about being able to guard guys as well. So it's something we talk about a lot. I think it probably shows in the way that we recruited and put this team together. We felt like we definitely needed to take a step up defensively. And, this was a step in that direction for sure.
You can tell by Kevin Young's commentary that's leveling up on the defensive end. That's the missing piece. Florida last year in the national title game and Houston, two excellent defensive teams a season ago. And you have to be elite defensively to win it all. You just have to. Last season, Florida in adjusted efficiency defensively, they were number 6. They were number 2 on the offensive end. You've got to be elite across the board to go cut down the nets and win a title. This BYU team believes that they could be that in that conversation. But you got to do it, stack those days, in the words of Kevin Young, and do that every single day. Because this Villanova team is not great by any stretch, but I do believe that they will be better than what they were under Kyle Neptune. It's going to take some time for Kevin Willard. Look, you can flip things over in a hurry, but I just don't think they got the top-end portal high school prospects to say they're going to step into the Big East and contend with teams like UConn. But still, I think at season's end, this is going to be a solid win on BYU's resume. And it's also, too, a great barometer where you come out of a game in non-conference play and you feel like you learned some stuff about BYU. Last year, they went 5 games into the season and you didn't learn a lick about BYU. It wasn't until they got to San Diego and then you started to learn some stuff, and they lose that game to Ole Miss, and then they bounce back and get a win. But really, you went 2.5 weeks without learning anything. Opening night, one of the biggest games on the opening night schedule behind only the game that was in front of you in Arizona and Florida, you learned some stuff about this team. They showed some toughness, and I thought that shined in this game. And I like the pulls of Kennard Moo Davis, because defensively he is underrated with what he provides to this team. And I still like his ability offensively too, knocking down threes. And there are going to be some nights this year where Moo Davis, he ends up maybe the leading scorer. He could do that for this BYU team. I am curious to see how the rotation continues to evolve. Will there be matchups that are more opportunistic for Xavier Staten to possibly get more time? He only appeared in a few minutes, but ultimately, the top-end talent on this roster is so good that if it's a tight game, you're not getting those guys off the court. It was nice in stretches in the first half where the Bonds is getting some breathers and BYU built its lead. I think it was an 8-point lead and BYU built it up to 10. There were moments. But still, when push comes to shove and the game is on the line, you got to have AJ on the court. And look, it's not cheap to put together this roster. The guys that are highest earners, they got to be on the court when it's clutch time and you need it the most. So I thought it was a good debut for BYU basketball. They will be back in action on Saturday against Holy Cross for the home opener. Tip-off is at 7 right here on KSL News Radio. Final break. We'll get to more BYU football talk next as the Cougs are eyeing the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Top 10 showdown. Going to be a big one. Let's hear from Kalani next. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the Cougars. Extended pregame begins on Saturday at 7 a.m. From Lubbock, myself and Kyle Ireland, we will have you covered for BYU and Texas Tech. And head coach Kalani Sitake leads BYU in his 10th season into their first ever top 10 matchup. And Kalani shared his thoughts on this talented Texas Tech team that's 8-1 overall and 5-1 in Big 12 play.
Opportunistic, and they can hurt you in such a short amount of time. So that's always dangerous. And then you could think it's going one way, and then they could just, next thing you know, in a matter of 3 to 5 minutes, they could really take over. So that's going to be difficult because they do that pretty easily, it seems like, with teams that when they play. But I like the matchup, man. I think it's going to be great for us. We see it on film. We've been seeing it for over a week already. We saw it all last week. We've been prepping for it, and it's easier said than done because a lot of teams have tried to do that, and not very many teams can put them on their heels. And so we're going to try to do something that nobody else has been able to do.
It'll be interesting to see what the point total is going to be needed to win this game. Is it first to 30? Because Texas Tech this year has scored at least 34 points or more in all but one game. The one game they didn't was against Arizona State in that loss in Tempe, where Arizona State had Sam Levitt in that game. Texas Tech is really good, and they didn't play really anyone in non-conference. They've dominated their opponents. It's been a relatively light schedule for Texas Tech, which is interesting because no one seems to bring that up much with Texas Tech. It's often brought up with BYU. Oh, they haven't played anyone. Tech's played some teams. Utah. BYU's played Utah too. Kansas State. That was a good win. It was. I'm not knocking Texas Tech. The validity of how good this team is. They're legit. I picked them in the preseason to win the Big 12. This is the best roster in the Big 12. But I also think that their schedule, you knew going in, there was an opportunity to win this thing because of the talent, but also because of the schedule. College football teams are defined by how the schedule stacks up, quarterback play, and I think also trust and confidence in a coach. And, Texas Tech, I think Joey McGuire has done a really good job building up that program. Kalani was very complimentary of Coach McGuire this week. But it is interesting how the meat of their schedule, not too much. Now, that win at Houston was good. Houston, were they a little bit of a paper tiger? I don't think so. I think Houston's solid. All that said, though, I think that these two teams do belong in the college football playoff. These are excellent football teams. And I think if Texas Tech wins this game, they're running the table the rest of the way. They're going to go 11-1, and they're going to be in Arlington. For BYU, if they lose this game, I still think they could run the table and go 11-1 and be in Arlington. If they win, I think they could go undefeated. I mean, that's how big of a game this is. I mean, you think about undefeated seasons in the regular season for BYU, it's 84 and it's 79. This sort of thing doesn't happen often. You got a lot of football left to play, but high stakes in this game. And I know sometimes coaches will say, the media builds up the stakes and it doesn't mean as much. Oh, no. You keep stacking these wins. The stage gets even bigger and bigger. And I love that College Game Day is coming to this game. But Texas Tech is an excellent football team. But so is BYU. And I wouldn't be surprised if BYU leaves people wondering, wow, how are they doing that against Texas Tech? Kalani, he's got some aces up his sleeve, man. It's a coach speak answer from Kalani. It's easy to point to it. But when he says he likes the matchup, I believe it a little bit. I don't think he would just say it. Maybe it's just you could chalk it up to a robotic nature where Kalani always throws that out, but I don't think he throws it out just for the heck of it. I think he really sees some things that BYU can attack. And I'm curious to see how BYU attacks. I do believe that trench play is going to be massive in this game. Offensive line for BYU has to be elite. All the snaps have to be on point for Bruce Mitchell. All of the dominance, dominating your 11th. That has to happen more than ever. And the defensive line, too. A little bit banged up. But Bodie Schoonover, can he follow up his 2-sack performance against Iowa State with another big performance against against Texas Tech? Keanu Tanavasa, can he have his best game as a BYU Cougar? And I say that because I think that's what it's going to take. Keanu's got to be elite. He's got to be the best player on the field. in stretches for BYU to go win this game. He can be. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think that's what's interesting about this matchup is that if you get the best version of BYU, they can win this game. But will you see the best version of BYU? Because despite the 8-0 record, there have been lulls in games where they don't look anywhere close to peak performance. And you're still getting wins because this team is just sound. And when one group is down and struggling, the other lifts them up. And it's, again, that complementary football piece. It's a heck of a matchup. I cannot wait. I did a TV hit for a local Lubbock, Texas station this week. Got some recommendations from Texas Tech fans. One in particular on X gave some good recommendations, at least it looks to be. I'm excited to be out there in Lubbock to see a huge game, the biggest game in the new look Big 12, and BYU is part of it. That's pretty cool. Because 2 years ago at this time, would you have ever guessed that BYU would be the marquee game in a power conference? It's massive stakes. It's a huge opportunity, and I'm curious to see how BYU performs. We'll have more coverage of BYU and Texas Tech, wall-to-wall coverage tomorrow, and every day up until kickoff, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and of course on Saturday with extended pregame from Lubbock, Texas at 7 a.m. So that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Subscribe to Cougar Tracks wherever you get your podcast, and we'll be back tomorrow on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the Cougars.